started it all and the political battle over making them public. Our Brooks Jackson picks up the story of the Tripp tapes.
It's what journalists call a man bites dog story. Some of President Clinton's defenders are now calling for full disclosure.
I don't understand why there would be reluctance to be released. We need to hear what they say.
And Republicans are calling for censorship.
There's an awful lot there that shouldn't go out.
At issue, conversations Linda Tripp recorded on a Radio Shack voice-activated tape recorder, model CTR 107, like this one, with Monica Lewinsky. Democrats believe both women come off badly in the tapes. You're going to hate their guts, one Democrat close to the Judiciary Committee said, two women manipulating each other. But Republicans say the tapes contain much that should not be released.
Well, Linda Tripp's tapes are very long. They are very garrulous. There is a lot of information that really does not pertain to this investigation. There is information there that really could be embarrassing to innocent people, third parties.
Hyde called for releasing written transcripts of the tapes. Democrats howled.
Can anyone think of a principled justification for releasing the audio tape, the videotape of the president, but not the audio tape of Linda Tripp? The Republicans started out saying they were going to treat the president like everybody else. Well, apparently Linda Tripp isn't everybody else.
Tripp turned over 17 tape cassettes to Ken Starr, which Starr says include 48 separate conversations with Lewinsky. The first is October 3rd, 1997, nearly a year after Lewinsky first told Tripp of her encounters with the president. And the last is January 15th of this year. The tapes could be juicy. Lewinsky says she was candid and truthful with Tripp, mostly. I'd say 95% accurate, Lewinsky testified to the grand jury. There were some things that I didn't tell her, but I usually pretty much told her everything. But Lewinsky says she started lying to Tripp last December, suspecting, accurately, Tripp would betray her. I think I told her that, you know, at various times the president and Mr. Vernon Jordan had told me I had to lie. That wasn't true. FBI tests show 9 of the tapes are probably not originals. Starr says he can't rule out tampering and is investigating. But he turned over all 17 tapes to the House anyway.
Now, as things stand, edited transcripts of these tapes might be released next week. As for the tapes themselves, it's not so clear. Congressman Frank said Democrats won't be pushing the matter, and a Republican spokesperson said that the Republican position would be if we can edit the tapes, then we'll do it. Judy?
All right, Brooks Jackson, thank you. Well, let's bring in 2 members of Congress to talk about the continuing battle over evidence and possible impeachment. Congressman Lindsey Graham is a South Carolina Republican and a member of the Judiciary Committee. He is on Capitol Hill. And we're also waiting to have join us Congressman Harold Ford, Democrat of Tennessee. He's now at the White House for a meeting with Vice President Gore. So to you, Congressman Graham, first, do you believe at this point that an impeachment inquiry is a done deal? There's no question that it's going to go forward.
Most likely. Let me just answer that question by what my goal would be in all of this. I think we owe it to future generations to have a record that makes some sense, that no matter what we do with the president, whether or not it's something short of impeachment or just drop it or move forward and have a trial in the Senate, I think we need for future generations to look back and say there was an organized piece of evidence that made some sense, that justified our decision. And I don't think there's any way we could show people in the future, or even our present-day citizens, what we've done and why. There's a mountain of evidence over there. We're going through it as quick as we can to take out some of the salacious material, but it's very important to me that history judge us well, and that you can look back 100 years from now and have a reason that makes some sense and understand the logic that went into the decision that we reach. And I don't know what that decision's going to be.
Well, does the committee have a standard for impeachment?
I tell you what, the committee doesn't, but let me tell you how I feel about it. The impeachment bar must be high because you're overturning an election, and in a democratic society, to overturn an election is a very extreme thing to do. If this is about an adulterous relationship with an intern where the president made some false statements to avoid embarrassment that most human beings could understand, then it's probably not going to result in an impeachment vote on my behalf. However, if this is about a criminal enterprise where the president and others around him engaged in criminal activity to deny a citizen their fair day in court, where he lied to the grand jury potentially, he obstructed justice in the Paula Jones case, orchestrated lying on his behalf in the Paula Jones case to deny that lady her fair day in court. Everybody in my district who would engage in like conduct would be in serious trouble. My standard, Judy, is going to be, would an average citizen engaging in like conduct be subject to legal liability in a serious way? That's what I'm going to look for.
Congressman Graham, does it matter to you if the process is bipartisan? Right now, there appears to be almost a perfect party split on so many of the issues that have come before this committee.
That's the way it was in Watergate. People may not remember this, but the vote on impeachment for Nixon, I think there were only 6 Republicans that actually voted, and we have a historical sense that everybody came together and it was sort of a done deal by both parties. Yes, it does matter to me that it's bipartisan, but it matters to me probably more than anything else that people who come after us will judge us well, that we had evidence that made some sense, that evidence was scrutinized. Much of the evidence that's out there now has never been subject to cross-examination. There's a bunch of hearsay statements out there that we don't know exactly if you should believe them. If Ken Starr has missummarized the evidence, has gave a different view of the evidence than maybe was justified based on the actual documents themselves, I want to know that. If Linda Tripp has messed with these tapes, I want to know that. God knows I've got problems with the president's testimony being less than accurate and complete. There's a lot to look at, and we need to do it in a fair way, a bipartisan way, but a way that will stand historical scrutiny. I don't want to tamper with the constitutional process and live just for the political moment, because a lot of people are going to live with our decision, and it's going to affect the quality of politics in this country for years to come.
Should there be a limit, Congressman, in terms of what the committee is looking at? Should it be restricted to the Lewinsky matter, or should it go well beyond that, as Speaker Gingrich has suggested?
I think what we should do is look at what Mr. Starr has done. Now, if he's got other matters, if there are other things out there that Ken Starr is looking at, I would like to get them over to our committee. But there's campaign finance problems, there's China technology transfer. That's just too much for us to deal with right now. What we need to do is do a good job with what Mr. Starr has sent us. And we shouldn't buy off on his version of the facts without questioning the facts, without having an independent review, making sure that it would withstand scrutiny, to have some cross-examination, have a hearing where people will be put under oath and their testimony will be challenged in a fair and decent manner. That has not been done yet, and until you get to that point in time, it'd be very hard to render a fair decision. But to pile all this other stuff on right now, I think is not wise.
All right, Representative Lindsey Graham, we thank you very much for joining us. As we said earlier, we had hoped that Congressman Harold Ford of Tennessee could join us. If he is able to during the hour, we will try to bring him to you as well. Coming up next, Hillary Rodham Clinton goes where some believe the president should not dare to tread, the campaign trail.
In the United States Senate when it comes to the issue of choice.
Inside Politics and CNN coverage of Election 98 is brought to you by Quest. Ride the light.
In the time it takes lightning to strike, every book in the Library of Congress can be sent coast to coast flawlessly. Quest has harnessed the speed of light. The world is about to become a very different place.
We at Neuberger and Berman have been competing in the mutual fund industry for nearly 50 years. So we see signs that our competitors may not. And what could result in disaster for the less experienced can be opportunity for those with seasoned judgment. Neuberger and Berman Funds.
Dear Jeff, you know how I'm always looking for helpful information on investing. Well, Neuberger and Berman just sent me their 10 secrets every mutual fund investor should know. Free. Even I learned a few things. Thought you would too, especially now that you're saving for the baby's college education. Get a copy. Call 1-800-383-FUND.
Give Mom and me a call sometime, too. Love, Dad.
How do these monks eat all these gassy foods and still maintain their vow of silence? With Beano. It has a natural food enzyme that helps stop gas before it starts. Beano before, quiet after.
A rich and magnificent culture. No wonder people say our in-flight service is legendary.
Victoria Molinari. She pays the mortgage and raises a little girl, but you should see the balance on her credit cards. So she calls us up. Pretty soon she's got the Back on Track plan at the money store. With a home equity loan, we pay off her cards and save her $400 a month. She even gets a reward for making payments on time. Automatic reductions on the interest rate. Hey, Victoria, you did it.
The Money Store. 1-800-OWN-YES.
I want to take a brief break from my remarks and introduce someone who we haven't heard from yet. I want her to come and speak, and then I will come back and finish my remarks, because after all, we heard a lot about the importance of our teachers. We know how significant what they've done at this school is in terms of the sacrifices they've made to do the best possible job they could do.
You're looking at a live picture of the First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton on the campaign trail today at this hour, in fact, in Denver, Colorado. The Monica Lewinsky scandal has left many Democratic congressional candidates ambivalent at best about getting help on the stump from President Clinton, and so First Lady is stepping in to fill the void. She is on a campaign swing through Colorado, Washington State, and Oregon. And let's get an update now from CNN's Jennifer Arthur in Denver. Jennifer.
Judy, we are just outside of Denver. We're about 5 miles north of Denver, where the First Lady is here campaigning for two Democratic candidates. One is Dottie Lamb. She is running for a seat in the U.S. Senate. The other is Lieutenant Governor Gail Shetler, who is running for governor of Colorado. The First Lady's motorcade rode past some protesters today from a religious group, and then she toured Fort Logan Elementary School. Here, some teachers have decided to take a pay cut where they will, in fact, be funding smaller class sizes. They were able to cut some classes down by as many as 11 students. The First Lady is appealing to the so-called soccer moms. She is apparently wanting to stress that there are other issues besides the one that are plaguing her husband, and specifically the scandal that he finds himself embroiled in because of Monica Lewinsky. Clearly, the strategy for Democrats here is this fall is to appeal to women with whom they feel the margin of victory will lie in November. And who better than to repair any of the damage that may have been caused by the scandal than the First Lady herself. As you said, Judy, she will move on from here to Seattle, where she will campaign for two more two women, Senator Patty Murray, an incumbent who's up for re-election, and Republican Congressman Linda Smith, who already has called for President Clinton to resign. Judy?
All right, Jennifer Arthur reporting from just outside Denver. Well, as the saying goes, Mrs. Clinton has only just begun her fall campaign, which includes the battle to keep her husband in office, as well as the push to elect Democratic candidates.
That we do not need a Jesse Helms clone in the United States Senate when it comes to the issue of choice.
That was Hillary Clinton on the trail in Manhattan, crisscrossing the city, praising Democratic Senate candidate Charles Schumer and hammering his opponent, GOP incumbent Al D'Amato. Aides and allies say expect much more of the same in the run-up to Election Day. They say it's just the start of a fall initiative. With her husband perceived as a political liability, Hillary Clinton may be the hottest Democratic draw around.
Among core Democrats, Hillary has always been a rock star as a campaigner. I think right now it's a moment when people are really drawn to her and they think they know what she's going through. Maybe they do. Most of us can't imagine it, I think. And I think that sympathy just adds to how people feel about having her in their state or their city.
Already in 1998, she has helped raise millions for House and Senate candidates in dozens of appearances all over the country. Now she's booked solid up to Election Day. And she's taking the fight directly to the Hill, lobbying House Democrats to fight any drive to impeach the president. Nothing firm yet, but there is talk she may make a personal appearance before the House Democratic caucus, before members head home to campaign in October.
I think that is something that she, being gracious as she is, volunteers to do. It would be consistent with who she is and what she's about.
With her husband's presidency in peril, Hillary Clinton's popularity, ironically, is sky high. Our latest CNN USA Today Gallup poll puts her personal approval rating at 61%, 10 points above her husband. Among Democrats, she enjoys an 85% rating. The First Lady has always been a controversial but effective campaigner. In 1992, she, almost as much as her husband, represented the kind of change many voters were hungry for. But her instincts were by no means infallible. She made some ill-advised comments on the campaign trail.
I suppose I could have stayed home and baked cookies and had tea, but what I decided to do was to fulfill my profession.
But she's also been quick to cut her losses, apologizing to country legend Tammy Wynette after mocking her song, Stand By Your Man, in that famous 60 Minutes interview. In 1994, Mrs. Clinton was a political lightning rod after her disastrous push for health care reform helped set the stage for the Republican triumph.
Let's welcome, rousingly, our First Lady, Hillary Clinton.
By 1996, she had adopted a lower and less controversial profile, but still she was a forceful presence on the trail. And this year, where the Democrats' #1 mission is to turn out core voters to counter a Republican base energized by the Clinton scandal, Hillary Clinton, because she's a polarizing figure, may be the best weapon they have. The First Lady is scheduled to campaign in Portland, Oregon tomorrow for a congressional candidate. After that, she's on to San Francisco for an event with Senator Barbara Boxer. When we return, behavior versus policy. Feminists take a stand on the presidential scandal, and critics take aim.
There's no question in my mind that the leaders of the feminist movement in this nation have proved themselves to be nothing short of hypocrites.
For the original aviators, there was only one seat in the plane, up front. For today's business travelers, today's aviators, there is still only one seat in the plane. We know you want that seat up front. That's why TWA expanded our first-class cabins. We've added 60% more first-class seats. Transworld First is just one of the ways we recognize you, today's aviators.
We're TWA, and we want to be your airline.
Computers would be easier if they were just a little smarter. One day, computers will be incredibly valuable personal assistants.
Would you like to schedule an appointment?
Sure.
How about Saturday, 2 p.m.?
Okay. Computers will recognize who you are, recognize your voice, and understand what you're saying. Oh, yeah. Know your mood, personality. You getting this?
It was the merger of America's two largest railroads. When the last spike was driven, America was officially open for business. Now, it's happening again. Two of the largest networks on Earth have become one. A single network that can handle all the data traffic of all the other carriers combined. Introducing MCI WorldCom. Now the world is officially open for business.
First you bought a home, and then you fixed it up. You added a deck, landscaped the yard, got furniture, and of course, appliances. Now your home looks great, but your bills are piling up. It's time to call First Plus. At First Plus, you can consolidate those bills into one lower monthly payment, and the interest may be tax deductible. And First Plus gives you more, up to 125% of the value of your home, so you don't need equity. Just call First Plus today at 1-800-510-PLUS.
The most evil men in the West are hunted for one thing.
I'm talking to you. This is the man we've been waiting for, praying for.
No one's ever been happy to see me.
When evil meets evil, the one who's left standing wins. Emilio Estevez, William Forsythe, Howie Long, $1 for the Dead. See it for the first time anywhere. Sunday, October 11th at 8 p.m. on TNT, the best movie studio on television.
watching you, CNN.
For feminists, supporting President Clinton has become a complicated issue. Many have condemned his behavior without calling for his resignation. Well, today, feminist groups tried to make their position clear. Jean Meserve has more on their choice and the criticism.
We're not coming back. Move back.
A man who has admitted an improper relationship with a much younger female subordinate has been accused of sexual harassment, has lied to his wife. Is this the kind of man you would expect feminists to support? The leaders of the movement do.
He may have behaved in a way that I think is despicable. I think he took advantage of his position of power. I think he lied about it to try to hide it. And on balance, he has been much stronger on the issues that affect my family. And this, overwhelmingly outweighs his strengths, outweigh his flaws.
Madeleine Albright's steely determination is...
President Clinton has given women powerful positions in his administration. He has championed the feminist agenda.
It does not serve women to try to hound this president out of office.
They have absolutely no credibility whatsoever at this stage. They say, oh, it is terrible what he's done. Well, excuse me, it's not only terrible, but it goes against everything that they stood for, that men should respect and value women, not only in the workplace, but in private as well.
Indeed, many of the same feminist leaders now supporting Clinton hounded Republican Senator Bob Packwood out of office for his boorish behavior and excoriated Clarence Thomas for allegedly using bad language.
The leaders of the feminist movement in this nation have proven themselves to be nothing short of hypocrites.
But feminists say conservative Republicans are hypocrites for invoking feminist ideals to attack the president.
Enough is enough. The very same members of Congress who assailed Anita Hill are now espousing a newfound interest in stopping sexual harassment. The same people who put an arbitrary cap on damages in sex discrimination cases suddenly are speaking out about women's rights in the workplace. Congress members who refuse to fully fund the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission want us to believe that they are suddenly champions of our cause.
Feminist organizations are trying to spur women to vote in November. They know that if Republicans gain just 5 seats in the Senate, they will have a filibuster-proof majority. That, they claim, could undermine 30 years of progress in women's rights, whether Bill Clinton is in the White House or not. Judy?
All right, Jean Meserve, thanks. And still ahead, we'll ask pollsters with opposing political views for their takes on the president's support and his future. And we'll go to the White House, where the president is talking more confidently about changing the subject.
Tonight on CNN at 6:30 on the Moneyline News Hour with Lou Dobbs, how some of Wall Street's best teeter on collapse. Then at 7:30 in the Crossfire, are liberal women's groups hypocrites because they want President Clinton to stay in office? At 8, it's The World Today. At 9, Larry King Live. Reaction from Jennifer Flowers on the president's testimony. At 10, Newsstand. The secret weapon Hollywood doesn't want you to know about. That's all tonight on CNN.
Sunday on Cold War. You know how it ended. Now discover how it began. The landmark documentary series begins Sunday on CNN.
When it comes to quality fitness equipment, Fitness Forever has it all. They have the most advanced exercise equipment like Vision Fitness, the leader in quality exercise bikes. Vision is quiet and smooth operating using magnetic resistance. Plus, its sturdy design and technologically advanced controls make Vision exercise bikes the best choice. Fitness Forever offers delivery, setup, and in-home demonstration. Plus, right now, you can get up to 6 months interest-free financing. Fitness Forever in Kingston and Fishkill.
What you want is 5-star safety at a great price. What you need is to hurry to your Tri-State Quality Ford store for low 0.9% financing or $1,500 cash back on Ford Windstar. It's the final days of Ford's factory authorized clearance. Time is running out to get low 0.9 financing or $1,500 cash back on every Windstar in stock. What you want is 5-star savings on a Ford Windstar. What you need is to get to the final days of Ford's factory authorized clearance at your Tri-State Quality Ford store now.
Early Edition with Donna Kelly and Leon Harris, 7 Eastern weekdays on CNN.
In the time it takes a shooting star to light the sky, every book in the Library of Congress can be sent coast to coast, flawlessly. Quest introduces the world's most advanced fiber optic network. The world is about to become a very different place.
A rich and magnificent culture. No wonder people say our in-flight service is legendary.
How do these monks eat all these gassy foods and still maintain their vow of silence? With Beano, it has a natural food enzyme that helps stop gas before it starts. Beano before, quiet after.
Picking up again our discussion of possible moves toward an impeachment inquiry in the House of Representatives. Earlier we spoke with Republican Congressman Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Now joining us from the White House, where he's been attending a meeting, Tennessee Democrat Harold Ford. Congressman Ford, is it a done deal that the House of Representatives is going to move toward this inquiry?
Well, I don't know if it's a done deal as of yet. I saw the news as I was walking out of a meeting just moments ago with the Vice President, and it seems clear that some action has been taken. I'm still a little concerned that no standard has been set yet by Mr. Hyde or any other members of the Judiciary Committee to determine what's impeachable or not. So it's my hope that at a minimum that Mr. Hyde is able to come forward, or the committee is able to produce something that all of us can judge this conduct by, or determine whether or not this conduct rises to the level of an impeachable offense.
Well, how confident are you that standard can be agreed on? And by the way, Congressman Graham earlier said that he thought the bar should be high.
Well, I think that's something that the committee is going to have to look at, and I would have to agree with my colleague, who I think has been a voice of reason throughout this. He's a younger member from South Carolina. But I do think that the committee has that responsibility, and before they go rushing to talk about impeachment hearings, I think we ought to have some standard, or at least begin a discussion about what the standard or how high the bar will actually be.
What do you think the bar should be?
Well, I don't know. I've had an opportunity to review some of the evidence. I've read most of the report, did not see all of the video testimony, and clearly that's one of the challenges we face. We don't have much precedent here, fortunately. And as the youngest member of the House, I wouldn't dare presume where the bar to be put right now as a freshman member, but I do think that Mr. Hyde owes us a greater responsibility than just to come forward and say that we're going to vote next week. Give us a standard, give us all something to judge this by, and hopefully allow us to put this matter behind us and bring closure to it, which is what I think not only those of us in the Congress want, but I feel safe in saying the majority of Americans want as well.
Well, do you have confidence that that is going to happen?
I'm optimistic. Perhaps it's because of my youth I am, but I'm optimistic that the committee can come forward, although I must say that their first two steps have not been encouraging, to release the transcript and release the video testimony without, I think, reviewing it first and determining whether it was proper or appropriate for it to be broadcast or disseminated across the internet. And for the video testimony, I don't know if it substantially added anything to what we already knew. I think it really only served to humiliate and embarrass the president more. Now, I'm not defending the president's conduct. I find it as indefensible as anyone. But now, as a member of Congress, we have to determine, is it impeachable? And we're looking to the Judiciary Committee for some guidance and instruction in that area. And up to this point, that's not been provided.
Should there be a limit on what the committee and what the Congress is looking at? Should it be restricted to the Lewinsky matter, or should it go beyond that?
We probably ought to limit to what the referral contained. I know there were many folks, including me, who were a little concerned that after 4 years of investigating Travelgate and Filegate and Whitewater, that the report contained very little, if anything at all, regarding those matters. But that's a decision. Mr. Hyde said today that he would restrict his inquiry at this point, and unless other information or another referral came to him. I know the Speaker disagrees with that. But it's my hope, like it is folks back in the 9th District in Tennessee, that we can bring some closure to this episode and get back to the business that the people elected us to.
Representative Harold Ford, we thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, in Chairman Henry Hyde's view, deliberate speed, he said, means his Judiciary Committee will vote October 5th or 6th on whether to recommend an impeachment inquiry against the president. The full House would then vote on the matter a few days later. While Mr. Hyde was presenting his timetable today, Mr. Clinton was intent on discussing other matters. Here's our White House correspondent, John King.
A president resigned to a protracted impeachment inquiry insists he has more important things to worry about.
The right thing for me to do is what I'm doing. I'm working on leading our country, and I'm working on healing my family.
Good economic news is great news for a president in crisis, eager to show the American people he's hard at work, despite the threat of impeachment.
Exactly a week from today, we will have the first balanced budget in surplus since Neil Armstrong walked on the moon in 1969.
Richard Nixon was president then, though it's hardly what he's remembered for. Mr. Clinton is fighting to avoid a similar fate, but the White House is all but throwing in the towel in its effort to strike a plea deal and head off a formal impeachment inquiry.
We will conduct ourselves with the solemnity and the dignity that the process requires, even if we take some objection to the fact that the inquiry is going to be commenced.
The White House hopes to convince the public impeachment is far too tough a punishment, a strategy that begins with having the president look presidential, the key to maintaining his high job approval ratings.
It's extremely important that he be seen as active, dealing with policy, dealing with business as much as normal as possible.
Some days that means putting the best face on questions about whether there's any way to avoid impeachment.
The way out here, and the only way out, is for people in Washington to do what the folks in America want them to do, which is to take care of their concerns, their children, and their future.
Attacking Republicans as obsessed with scandal is another White House staple.
The only thing they agree on is on attacking the president.
While he was in no mood to talk about impeachment today, the president did offer a laundry list of policy priorities for the closing days of this year's congressional session. But Republicans are ignoring most of them, a clear sign they view the president as too weakened by scandal to drive the country's agenda. Judy?
All right, John King, thank you. And now let's get a sense of what guidance and perhaps comfort the White House is finding in its own polls. Joining us now, Clinton pollster Mark Penn. First of all, Mark Penn, we're seeing in a Pew poll that's just come out, 4 out of 10 Americans say the president doesn't have the moral authority to lead this country. That can hardly be uplifting to people who are in the White House, much less to the president himself.
Well, I think that what you're also seeing in the polls is that the people are saying that the president has the authority and their blessing to continue to lead their country. And that's both in the questions that show 2/3 say that he has the leadership capability to lead this country. It's also in his high job approval ratings. And you know, it's also in things like 100 world leaders standing up to applaud the president at the United Nations earlier this week.
So do you just ignore the 32% who say the president should be impeached, 39% say the president should resign?
Well, I think when you look again in your polls at the 32%, you'll find that the way this is played out is almost entirely partisan. But that's about 70% of Republicans, almost no Democrats, and more than 2/3 of independents say this president should keep doing his job.
As you know, Mark Penn, probably as well as anyone, there are several important congressional races and Senate races that have tightened up. In some instances, the Republican has moved ahead. Are members of Congress in some of these instances paying the price for the president's activities?
Well, I think based on your polls, the Republicans are having trouble enough trying to make this matter stick on the president. I think it's really a wide stretch for them to try to make this stick on members in Senate races. And the truth is, I met with almost all of the major Democratic pollsters earlier, and no one has seen any tightening. I think that this is part of a Republican scare tactic, if you will, in terms of trying to create a sense of this movement. But the real polls here are showing yours, mine, everyone else's are showing absolutely no movement.
But do you think Democratic candidates, though, are going to be enthusiastic about having the president campaign with them this fall?
Well, I think some are, some aren't. I think, though, that they're looking at a president with very high job approval ratings, and what they are very happy about is the president's agenda: Social Security first, investing in education, protecting the environment, Patients' Bill of Rights. This is a strong agenda that the president has, and they're going to be running on that president's agenda, every last one of them.
Chairman Henry Hyde of the Judiciary Committee said today that he said this is a nation governed by the rule of law, not by public opinion polls, when he was asked about why don't you pay attention to the fact that most Americans want the president to stay in office. Why should the Judiciary Committee, or should it, pay attention to polls?
Well, I think polls are very important in this, in that they're providing some guidance here in terms of what the people think should be done. And I think that's something that lawmakers and legislators should always take into account. After all, this is not a case in which people have very limited information or haven't been shown the facts. Most people now have more information about this matter than maybe they had about all of World War II at the time. They have more information, I think, than any other matter before the public, and they've consistently come back with a judgment that there's nothing impeachable here. That's a very strong message for the elected leaders to listen to.
All right, Mark Penn, thank you very much. And also joining us now, a Republican pollster with his own take on this, Ed Goaz. You heard what Mark Penn is saying, that the public, majority of the public is saying whatever Bill Clinton has done, we want him to stay in office.
Well, first of all, let me go back to the focus on the job approval rating. Yes, the job approval rating is staying high. I think it's a very narrow answer. They're focusing on the economy. What we do see is this favorable rating has now dropped below that of Ken Starr, with 40% approving the president, 55% unfavorable towards the president. His personal approval ratings from 2 weeks ago when I was in here and had this discussion with you has dropped even further. 25% personally approve of the president, 68% disapprove of the president personally. We see these numbers indicated all the way through. I think the White House is latching on to two numbers. One is the favorable, the job approval rating, trying to say it's not coming down, and that's not where you're seeing the indications of the scandal. I think second is they're trying to say people have come to a conclusion in terms of what the punishment should be. I think what you do see in the numbers is 80% of the American public is answering some type of a consequence for the president. Have they come to a conclusion on what the consequences and punishment should be? No. But they're moving towards that, and I think it's in process in terms of making a decision what the punishment should be.
Should Congress be governed by what public opinion polls are showing? Frank Newport of the Gallup poll wrote a piece in the New York Times today saying, in essence, Republicans ignore the polls at their own peril.
Well, you know, Frank used to work with me years ago, and in all due respect, the polls are in shift. They haven't come to a conclusion what should happen to the president, and I think to focus on one or two numbers and say this is what the people want today is just false. We're seeing movement in those polls, and I think what is more important is, as we saw with both members of the Judiciary Committee today, is that they're approaching this in a very judicial and very thoughtful way in the process, and I think the voters are at the same point. They're looking at the information, they're coming to conclusions, but to say that they have come to a conclusion already is just false.
What about the approval ratings of Congress? Should members of Congress keep that in mind as they consider this terribly important
Well,
question?
It's interesting. The Pew poll that came out this weekend showed the same thing again that we showed in our battleground survey, that job approval of Republican leadership was at basically even 45-45, much like what we had in our survey. But if you look at the job approval of individual congressmen, it's 70%, higher even for Republicans. We have it at 77%. So to look at that institutional measurement and say that it's having an impact on the individual congressman and their job approval rating is just not the factor here.
All right, Ed Goaz,
thank
you very much. And ahead on Inside Politics, campaigning New York style. Bill Schneider looks at the ads and the jabs in the Senate race. Plus, who has the edge in the coming elections? We'll check Bob Novak's notebook for the latest projections.
Some mutual fund managers actually believe they can predict a company's future earnings. But even with all of their charts and graphs, it's easy to be wrong. That's why we recommend a different approach. Meet Michael Price, value investor and president of Mutual Series Funds.
Forecasting future earnings is guesswork.
What's really important is determining what a company's worth and buying its stock at a significant discount. That's what gives value investors the edge.
Ask your investment professional about mutual series funds or call Franklin today.
It was the merger of the two largest railroads in America. And it touched everyone.
To unite the Atlantic and the Pacific.
For when the last spike was driven into the last tie, America was officially open for business.
The East and the West have come together.
And now, it's happening again. A new and critical link has been forged.
A worldwide network.
Two of the largest networks on Earth have just become one. With capacity so vast, it can carry all the data traffic of all the other carriers combined to more places around the world than any other network. Introducing MCI WorldCom. Now the world is officially open for business.
If you're an investor in today's volatile market, what should you do now?
There comes a time when you realize you've come about as far as you can on your own. And if you want your investments to go further, you're going to need someone with the expertise and the resources to help you go the distance.
Solomon Smith Barney can help with 8 strategies for investing in a volatile market. Call 1-800-EARNS-IT, extension 129, and learn about investments that leverage the market's upside potential without risking the downside. Discover the core stocks every investor should consider. Find ways to protect the money you've earned and see new opportunities in fixed income investments. Call today for your free copy of Investment Opportunities for a Volatile Market.
It's not an admission of failure. It's an admission of success. It's an acknowledgement of what you've got at stake here.
If you're looking for investment opportunities in today's volatile market, they're here in this free guide. Call 1-800-EARNS-IT, extension 129 today.
Now, something new here on Inside Politics from the front. A look at the political battles outside the Beltway. As we inch closer to Election 98, we will periodically check the races and polls across the country. Today, the race that drew the First Lady's attention yesterday. Plus, if you'll forgive us, a little barnyard humor with our own Bill Schneider. Bill?
Judy, start spreading the news, and let's go to New York. Senator Al D'Amato, one of the most vulnerable GOP incumbents. This race started out hot, and it can only get hotter. No sooner did Congressman Chuck Schumer win the Democratic primary last Tuesday than, blam, he and the state party came out firing tough attack ads at D'Amato, like this one, using one of the Democrats' favorite weapons, Medicare, or as Republicans call it, Mediscare.
Al D'Amato voted to double Medicare premiums for doctor visits, not once, but twice, double-crossing senior citizens.
Hey, Al, stop messing with my Medicare.
Then, pow, D'Amato fires back. You know how Brooklyn used to be the setup for jokes? Anybody here from Brooklyn? Well, in his latest ad, D'Amato uses Brooklyn literally as a punchline. It's the upstate apple knockers versus dem bums from Brooklyn.
Liberal Brooklyn Congressman Chuck Schumer doesn't think upstate New York matters. Just a year ago, he said, "To me, the West begins across the Hudson River." He voted against dairy farmers. Send Chuck Schumer a message. There's more to New York State than just Brooklyn.
Oh, by the way, that ad is only running upstate. And you know, D'Amato's been elected 3 times, twice by less than 2 points. This year, Al's running scared again. The latest poll, Schumer 47, D'Amato 43. That's too close to call. Which may be why the First Lady went to New York last night and called D'Amato a, quote, Jesse Helms clone. And speaking of Jesse Helms clones, North Carolina's other conservative Republican Senator, Locke Faircloth, is facing a tough challenge from wealthy Democratic newcomer John Edwards. But this story is not the same as the one in New York. Back in July, Faircloth was leading by 9 points. Now, it's 10. On to Maryland, where crabby voters are giving incumbent Democrat a hard time. In the race for governor 4 years ago, Paris Glendening beat Republican Ellen Sauerbrey by just 6,000 votes, less than 0.5%. This year, they're at it again. Governor Glendening's so nervous, he refused to show up when President Clinton came to Maryland for a fundraiser this month. Should he be nervous? Yep. The Latest poll, Sauerbrei 1 point ahead. This could be Sauerbrei's sweet revenge. Get it? Sweet? Sour? Oh well. And finally, a little Dairyland humor from Wisconsin. Republican challenger Mark Newman is resorting to gas warfare in his campaign to unseat Democratic Senator Russ Feingold.
This scientist is hard at work spending your tax dollars. It's all part of a government study on cow gas. You know, the kind of gas that comes from... As ridiculous as this sounds, you may not be amused to know that Russ Feingold voted to keep the cow gas study while voting to raise your taxes. Hi, folks. I'm Mark Newman.
Utterly effective, I'd say. Judy?
There's nothing I can add. Bill Schneider, thank you very much. Let's talk more about the election now with Bob Novak of the Chicago Sun-Times. All right, Bob, you are in Chicago. Tell us, how are Republican candidates faring these days?
I've been on the phone to a lot of Democratic managers around the country this week, and they are scared no matter what front they put up, because in most races, New York Senate race is an exception, the numbers are going in the wrong direction for Democrats. Quite apart from the president's poll rating, for example, in California, suddenly the governor's race, where the Democrat Gray Davis had a huge lead over the Republican Dan Lungren, that has really tightened up. One race calls it a dead heat. Nothing Davis did wrong. It's all the problem of the president, and you find that in state after state.
Bob, overall, tell us about what the congressional projections are looking like.
The Evans-Novak Political Report, which about a month ago had a 5-seat Democratic gain projected. Right now, we think that the races in the House of Representatives would come out even. No gain for the Republicans, no gain for the Democrats if the election were held today. But the trends are going in the favor of the Republicans. Just for example, in the Northeast, strongest Democratic area right now, you have Congressman Henshey and LaFaus in New York, who are in trouble. You find that two freshman Democrats in Massachusetts in trouble, freshman Democratic Congressman Maloney in Connecticut in trouble. So you could find a gain of 5 to 15 seats of the Democrats, and possibly even more. We find 40 Democratic seats are in danger, and so they're kind of skating on thin edge. In the House of Representatives and the Senate, it's much worse. It's entirely possible that the Republicans could approach 60 seats because the trend lines are all going in their direction.
All right, and finally, just quickly, what are you hearing about Al Gore in 2000?
I find a lot of people, not inside the Beltway, he's king inside the Beltway, but outside the Beltway, Democratic managers are saying this is now a horse race, and there's a lot of interest in somebody who is non-Washington, no scandal, no fundraising. You know who they're talking about? They're talking about Bill Bradley. He's still flying under the radar, but if he comes up, a lot of people would be very interested in taking a good look at the former senator from New Jersey.
Nothing like a good old-fashioned contest. Bob Novak, thanks. And still ahead on Inside Politics, taking government language to a new level. But will the vice president and his boss follow suit? Bruce Morton has a few choice words.
To the French, life is an adventure. Food is a passion. And yogurt is your play. C'est si bon. It is so good.
Last winter, after years of high cholesterol, Mike Vaughn had a heart attack. He spoke to his doctor about Zocor, a cholesterol medicine proven to help save the lives of people with high cholesterol and heart disease. Now he's made some important plans with Alex. When diet and exercise aren't enough, talk to your doctor about adding Zocor. Zocor is a prescription medicine and is not right for everyone. It is not for people with liver problems or women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. Your doctor may perform blood tests to check for liver problems. Because serious side effects can result, tell your doctor about any muscle pain or weakness you experience while on Zocor. And tell your doctor about any medicines you are taking. For product information, talk to your doctor or pharmacist, or call 1-800-MERC-94. Zocor is the most often prescribed cholesterol medicine. Aren't there enough reasons in your life to ask your doctor about Zocor? Zocor, cholesterol medicine that helps save lives. It's your future. Be there.
Dr. Billy Graham talks about his son, Franklin Graham.
God led him into the ministry, and into the ministry of helping people all over the world.
You can read about the ministry of Samaritan's Purse and the life of Franklin Graham in his autobiography, Rebel with a Cause. In this revealing book, Franklin describes what it was like to grow up as Billy Graham's son. For a limited time, Samaritan's Purse is offering callers a free copy of Franklin Graham's autobiography, Rebel with a Cause. So call 1-800-809-3882.
Here's an odd fact about Microsoft Word, the popular word processing program. If you click on the thesaurus, type in, "I'd like Bill Clinton to resign," the word finder comes back with, "I'll drink to that." A secret message from Bill Gates? Actually, no. Microsoft says it's just a glitch, that if you type in any phrase beginning with "I'd like," you'll get the same result. The firm says it's fixing the problem. Vice President Al Gore is leading a push to make the language of government easier to understand. But, as Bruce Morton reports, the Clinton administration isn't exactly famous for its use of plain English.
Short is better than long.
Vice President Gore at a ceremony awarding the General Services Administration a prize for rewriting governmentese into plain language. New government documents are supposed to be written in plain starting next month. Old ones rewritten into plain by the year 2002.
Everyday terms are better than technical jargon.
Yes, sir, but remember when you were defending White House fundraising?
My counsel advises me that there is no controlling legal authority or case that says that there was any violation of law whatsoever.
Plain speaking helps to create understanding, and understanding helps to create trust.
Yes, sir, but what does this create?
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is.
Yes.
If is means is and never has been, that's one thing. If it means there is none, that was a completely true statement.
Plain speaking helps to create understanding.
Do you agree with me that the statement, "I was never alone with her," is incorrect? You were alone with Monica Lewinsky, weren't you?
Well, it depends on how you define alone.
Well, Webster seems pretty certain.
And understanding helps to create trust.
I'm going to revert to my former statement.
Mind you, sometimes our leaders do speak plainly.
I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
That's plain, but not true the way most of us read the language. Maybe it comes down to the old rule parents use. Do as I say, not as I do. That's plain. Bruce Morton, CNN, Washington.
That's all for this edition of Inside Politics. I'm Judy Woodruff. Worldview is next.
Tonight on CNN at 6:30 on the Moneyline News Hour with Lou Dobbs. How some of Wall Street's
women around the country seem to agree. Far fewer women than men want to see Clinton impeached, and